there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Where you gonna be tonight? Oh, oh, oh. There's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Get ready for your life.
Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to SassafrasCast. This is our second episode of SassafrasCast Teaches You Tarot, and today we are talking about the suit of Pentacles. I'm still getting my banners up, and I'm getting ready to do a little shout out to my patrons. So, my name is Rory. I am a singer-songwriter, tarot reader, all-around personal growth nerd, and podcaster. And I usually do episodes of this podcast centered around all things witchy and wonderful, and especially personal growth and healing and self-care. I consider it a self-care podcast. This episode was recorded live with an audience of my patrons, and I want to give them a shout out. If you didn't know, you could support this podcast at patreon.com/Sassafras Tarot for $1 a month or more. I record these episodes live. My patrons get a private YouTube link before each one so they can tune in, hang out in the chat, ask questions, and get them answered in real time. They also get access to my Discord server where we talk about all things witchy and wonderful, and they get a shout out in every episode. So here we go. I just pulled up my most current patron list. Shout out to Amanda Little, Melissa Marie, Rachel Miller, Grayson, Millie Orozco, Ruby, Rebecca Jones, Brittany Campbell, Ginger Dawn Studios, and Savannah Tillett. I'm so grateful that you're in my world. I don't know who's tuned in, but I'm so grateful that you're tuned in. I see Brittany's tuned in. Hello, how art thou? Yes, it is Pentacles Day, a day I have been looking forward to because your girl is an earth sign, and I have rediscovered how much I love Pentacles, or maybe just discovered it, and earth as an element in my adulthood. During the first time I really got into tarot and the witchcraft. I think I was going to say something else, and then the witchcraft came out. You know, tarot, witchcraft, folk magic. Earth kind of didn't do it for me as an element, and I was more into water. I really aligned with water, and I realize now, looking back, that it's because as an earth sign, water is a healer for me. Water helps me grow, just like it helps plants grow, and it also, like, it washes away the nonsense. So when I get bogged down, water is a healer for me, and that is why I have always been attracted to the element of water. But I've really, like, in part because I've done my own personal journey of, like, self-care and learning to trust myself and honor myself, and I've come to appreciate the beautiful, grounded practicality of the earth and how much it has to offer and how it is a thing to come home to. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the suit of Pentacles. If you missed my last episode, I'm doing a series right now where I teach you tarot. I'm going to take us through the deck and give you a look at every single card in the deck, every single suit of the deck, and a couple different ways to look at those cards and suits. And I am also going to include an episode or two that is focused on what it is to be a good reader, how to be nuanced, how to read for different types of people, how to read for yourself, how to be objective, how to connect the dots so a reading is meaningful instead of just like rote meanings, which doesn't always give you a feeling of satisfaction and insight if you don't have that, like, kind of connecting the dots kind of thing. So I will be doing some episodes on that, I think at least 2. But right now, we're still in the early stages, and we are going through the tarot deck. I'm separating out my tarot deck. If you hear little papery noises, that is it. I'm taking the suit of Pentacles out of the rest of my tarot deck. I'm using for this broadcast and this whole series the Everyday Witch Tarot by Deborah Blake and Elizabeth Alba. And that's because it is a Smith-Waite clone. The Rider-Waite-Smith deck, also referred to as the Smith-Waite deck, is what people think of as a classic tarot deck drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith. And many other decks since them are what's called clones of it, meaning that they don't look exactly the same, although some of them directly use the same line art, but it's more that they include the same imagery and general ideas of the deck, like card to card. The Four of Pentacles is the Four of Pentacles, in other words. It's not a different system, it's the same system. So I'm choosing it because it is one of the Smith-Waite clones. It is something that is like reliable. If you have a traditional quote-unquote Smith-Waite deck, you will be able to work with it in conjunction with this series that I'm doing. But that's not a requirement. You know, like there's a lot of, whatever deck you have, you should be able to follow along with some reasonableness. If you want to look up the Everyday Witch Tarot while you're going through this, you're welcome to. It's a beautiful deck. It's drawn by Elizabeth Alba. Deborah Blake is the author, and that's my story. So let's talk about Pentacles, baby. Actually, first I'll just like give you a little overview of what I'm going to be sharing in this episode and let you know I'll be doing the Witchy Weather Report as well. I'm going to grab a different tarot deck for that. Here's the structure of my general episodes. I do a Witchy Weather Report. I pull a card for everybody. That is a card intended to meet you wherever you're at on your path right now when you're listening to this, whether it is live as I'm recording it, whether it is 5 years in the future, whether it is 100 years in the future. Hi, archaeologists. How you doing? We were into witchy shit in the 2020s because the world was falling apart, and that is traditionally a method of marginalized and oppressed groups to try to reclaim some of their power. Anyway, take that to your paper that you're writing about us. So the Witchy Weather Report is the first section of the show. Then I'm going to get into, you know, like kind of the main part of this podcast where I talk about the Suit of Pentacles. After that, we're going to go to Witch, You Got This, and I'm going to give you a really simple idea for how to use the information I'm sharing today. Something that you can just take away and use right away that's simple and doesn't require a lot of preparation or stress. And after that, I'm going to play you a song. I always play a song at the end of the podcast because I'm a singer-songwriter and I do what I want. So that's what we have coming right up. I'm going to grab an additional deck because I'm never prepared, and that's the story of my life, to do the Witchy Weather Report with, because I have already separated out Everyday Witch Tarot, and I don't want to read just from Pentacles for Witchy Weather Report. I want us to be able to get any tarot card in the deck. So let's see here. I know I've got some tarot cards nearby. I'm going to grab one. Okay. For the Witchy Weather Report, I will be reading from the Transient Light Tarot by Ari Wisner, a new deck that I bought recently that I have absolutely fallen in love with. When I pull this card, my intention is to reach you wherever you're at and whenever you're at in time, and then it have some relevance for you right now. So if you're coming back to the episode, if you haven't listened to SassafrasCast ever before and you just discover me, if so, thank you. If you're listening live, whatever. In all cases, this card is for you. Doing a little bit of a shuffle. And as I broadcast this, I will share that it is August 2023. This is my birthday month. We're coming out of Leo season and into Virgo season this month. Here is our card. My intention when I pull this card is that it be a light in the darkness for us in the coming weeks, that it give us some information about what's to come and how we can focus ourselves and our energy best to meet what is to come. What I have here is the Keeper of Vessels. Vessels in this case represent cups or the element of water, and the Keeper of Vessels is almost like the highest expression of the heart, the highest of expression of emotionality. And when we talk about cups and water and vessels, what we're talking about is our feelings, and we're talking about them as a beautiful rich well from which to draw. That was a hard sentence to say. A beautiful rich well from which to draw. I think often we talk about emotions in terms of managing them, or in terms of when they're a problem, we talk about them, right? And so there's this sense of emotions being this thing that gets in the way of our daily lives, rather than this very rich well from which we can draw to live a joyful and resourced life. And that is what the Keeper of Vessels knows how to do. The Keeper of Vessels works in conjunction with their emotions and honors them and honors everything about them, the full emotional experience, as an important marker for being alive. You know, like, if you're not feeling, are you truly living? That is a question that the Keeper of Vessels asks, and the Keeper of Vessels seeks out the sacred in the emotional by simply sinking into and being one with their emotions. That doesn't mean that the Keeper of Vessels is ruled by their emotions. On the contrary, the Keeper of Vessels rules in conjunction with the wisdom of their emotions. They know that any decision they make that does not consider their emotions is not going to be a fully considered decision and may or may not go well. They need the important information and wisdom that their emotions can bring. So you are being asked in the coming weeks to be the keeper of your own vessel, the keeper of your own heart. Allow your heart to be the key to the decisions that you're making. This doesn't mean we make snap emotional judgments. What it actually means is that we pay deep attention to how we feel about different things, how we feel it in our body, and also how we describe those feelings when we talk about them, because both those things together give you a picture of your emotion and its wisdom. Allow yourself to do a lot of somatic processing as you are making decisions in the coming weeks. Do not make decisions that are purely rational, because that leaves out important information. Rather, look at the rationality of the situation for sure, but then be kind to yourself and take some time to just tune into how you really feel about all of it. Because if you feel in direct conflict with the rational thing that you're deciding, it's not going to feel good to you no matter what. At no point are your feelings going to change to be more logical. That's not the job of feelings. So your role in making decisions about your life is to try to empower yourself to lead a joyful life, to lead a life where your feelings are in line with your actions and in line with you being your best self. That doesn't mean change your feelings. We can't be expected to do that. Our feelings just are. They're like the emotional weather. Rather, it means working with them hand in hand so that we are able to have a meaningful life. Let's go for meaningful rather than logical. Diving into the different suits of the tarot, I'll do a quick overview for you before I talk about Pentacles. And I want to say, if you are a patron and you're tuned in, I know I invited a couple people to tune in personally, and I always also post this on the Discord. If you're a patron and you tend to miss it on the Discord or Patreon, give me a heads up if you would like me to drop a link like the day of in your, Facebook Messenger or something. I am willing to do that. Anyway, we just read a card that was the Keeper of Vessels, which is another word for the King of Cups. This tarot deck, the Transient Light Tarot, does not use like gendered descriptions in its court card, which I thoroughly appreciate as a non-binary person. And the suits are not necessarily the same names as you expect. They still correspond to fire, water, earth, and air, but as you see here, vessels is the chosen language for what is traditionally known as the element of the suit of cups, which is represented by the element of water. Some decks just take out the middleman and they use the terms fire, water, earth, and air for their suits, so there's no confusion there. This is the element about which we are talking. And still other decks, have different terminology that relates back to that. But, doesn't use the traditional, cups, pentacles, wands, and swords, but will use other representations of those elements. These are still the same tarot decks and still the same system. They're just using different language. They're just dressing up the element differently. Now, I'm going to use the word pentacles because I like the word pentacles and because it encompasses a lot for me. But this suit, which is the suit of earth, has also been referred to as the suit of coins. And I think that referring to it as the suit of coins is reductive because people already associate pentacles with money. And money for sure is a topic that pentacles weigh in on. Our money is an important part of our stability. When we talk about the suit of Earth, we are talking about our stability. We are talking about those things in our lives that keep us grounded and keep us stable. And that means that we may not think about those topics until they're out of whack, right? Often, our day-to-day basic stability, our health, our core family relationships, our finances, our daily experience and what it does with our energy, you know, like kind of our regular schedule. Those are the core things that contribute or delete from your stability. If something is out of whack in those core areas of your life, you will feel less stable. If things are in whack, you may not even notice how well, like, you may not even notice it because there's no problem to solve, you know? We are, like, our brains are kind of hardwired to seek out problems and solve them. And if there's no problem, it's like, all right, good, we're good here. So we're going to be talking about stability. We're going to be talking about what it means to feel grounded and specifically to feel stable, because I think the word even grounded in the magical community has a specific connotation of like where you're at with your energy, like kind of having the right amount, not having too little, not having too much. And if we think about energy, that already is like a can of worms, right? We're like, what do you mean energy? Do we mean magical energy? Do we mean pranic energy? Do we just mean like the feeling of feeling either energized or tired? It's a lot. So I like to talk about stability when I talk about the suit of Pentacles, the suit of Earth. It is about what grounds us. It is about what keeps us feeling whole and feeling able to go after our lives and continue to experience things without feeling like we are either doing too much or too little. The Pentacles are a very practical suit. I will also share what the word pentacle means for those who are not like in the folk magic witchy world. A pentacle is specifically a physical representation of a pentagram. What is a pentagram? A pentagram is a star in a circle. That is all it is. 5-pointed star inside of a circle. There are many different cultural associations with the pentagram, and the Satanic Panic in the 80s was responsible for creating some of those associations and linking the pentagram to satanic ritual. There is actually a Church of Satan, which is not a church that endorses the Christian devil, but rather I would say it's a more philosophical church, and they've actually done some really positive work for things like abortion rights in the last few years. I am not a Satanist, but I have respect. I have respect for the Satanists. Anyway, in part, in a tongue-in-cheek way, they have adopted the pentagram just to a little bit be like, just to, I think, tweak, you know, like kind of that prevailing view. Obviously they've adopted the word Satan, and it's in part because their philosophy is very much about questioning. I'm not going to say much more about Satanism, and you might find the words Levian Satanism, because that is the name of the person who started it. Because I'm not as educated as I should be to speak on it, but I will say that basically consider it to be not a worship of the Christian devil, but rather a philosophy that encourages a great deal of questioning and deliberately uses words like Satan in order to get your brain going, you know, in order to like get the start of that questioning and pit it against the kind of normal accepted mode of thought. Now, in paganism, in neo-paganism, in Wicca, in kind of modern folk magic, the pentacle or pentagram is associated with the element of earth. It is also a symbol of protection. There are different reasons to draw a pentagram, and it also represents all 5 elements. So the 5-pointed star for 5 elements, and the 5 elements here are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, the 5th element. Many people refer to spirit as the 5th element. I think in classical terms, ether is the name of the 5th element, so take your pick. But the fifth element is like that nebulous extra energy, right? It's like similar to the Force in Star Wars, before we knew about the midichlorians. It's just this sense of like this intelligent energy that kind of gets things done. That's spirit. So Pentacles, the suit in the tarot, represents one of those elements, earth. And the difference between a pentagram and a pentacle is that a pentacle is a physical manifestation. So you will see a metal circle with a star on it, and that's a pentacle. If you draw a circle with a star on it, like on a piece of paper, you have drawn a pentagram. That's the difference. So pentacles are often represented by metal coins with a star on them. Not always, but often. In the tarot. And that is the imagery in the Smith-Waite deck, and it is also the imagery in the Everyday Witch Tarot, from which I'm reading, and many different like decks that are, like I said, clones of the Smith-Waite deck. Now that we've defined our terms, we're already 20 minutes into the podcast, so thank you for bearing with me. Let's talk about the suit of Pentacles. Every suit in the tarot takes us on a journey. If you remember the major arcana, which you can go back and listen to that episode, but you don't have to start with it. You can really start with any of these episodes and listen to them in any order you choose, and you'll get a good understanding of the tarot deck. The major arcana, which is the first 22 cards in the deck and represents different experiences and archetypes in life, you could consider that to be aligned with the element of spirit. The major arcana tells a story. The cards are numbered in order, and it tells a story. Now, every suit of the tarot can tell a story in the same way. We journey through the suit, having different experiences associated with the topics that that suit addresses. In the case of Pentacles, the topics that we're talking about is our stability, our health, our money, our day-to-day experiences. And I say day-to-day experiences, and what I'm talking about is if you have a job that feels shitty and you go there and it drains your energy and you feel like by the end of the day you're so depleted, then that affects your stability, right? That is a day-to-day experience that is making you feel less stable because you don't have energy remaining to deal with the other parts of your life outside of your job. And if you have a job that really agrees with you, where you feel like you have good coworkers and good, like you feel good throughout the day, you're working in a way that feels good to you, that doesn't feel like it demands too much, but also isn't unchallenging, and you feel positive about what you do and the people that you work with, then you have a more stable work life, right? And that, simply by not creating problems in your life, contributes to your stability, and also by giving you a paycheck, of course. And similarly, the people you live with contribute to your stability. The people you encounter every day contribute to your stability. If you see a guy on the corner every day as you walk to the subway, how that relationship is, like if you walk right by him, maybe he doesn't contribute. If you have a conversation every day, and it usually is a nice conversation, that also is a contributor to your stability, right? Like your day-to-day experiences, you might even be thrown off. If you don't see him at the corner right there, it might be like, oh, I hope John's okay, right? If you have a harrowing experience as you walk to the subway every day with a, belligerent person that you must encounter, then that also contributes to your stability in a more deleterious way. So when I say day-to-day experiences, that's what I'm talking about. We can cultivate our stability by cultivating these areas of our life, cultivating our physical and emotional health, cultivating our day-to-day experiences and kind of schedules and what they look like, and cultivating our financial health. Let's go through the suit of Pentacles. And as I go through this, I'm going to share kind of what each suit looks like. We go from Ace to 10. We have those 10 numbered cards as we would in a regular deck of cards. And then we have 4 court cards. Our court cards are the Page, Knight, Queen, and King. And different decks, as I've described, will interpret the court cards differently. I will say Page, Knight, Queen, and King are not my favorite interpretation because it puts some weird gender roles on there. It also puts the King as highest, which is kind of patriarchal and shitty and not something I buy into. there are different decks that have interpreted this differently. The Wild Unknown deck interprets these court cards as daughter, son, mother, father, and specifically says that there's no hierarchy to be interpreted there, like kings aren't better than queens, fathers aren't better than mothers, type of things. That's still a gendered take, but it is at least a take that doesn't assign, like, what's the word? Value to gender, so that's a thing. In the deck I read from for the Witchy Weather Report, we take a very different tack, where we have Apprentice, Champion, Keeper, and Crown. And we see an ascension as we talk about that. We see an ascension of Apprentice, Champion, Keeper, and Crown. And what I said earlier about the Keeper being analogous is not analogous with the King, it's analogous with the Queen. So, statement corrected. But as you can see, Keeper and Crown reflect two different forms of mastery. Neither is better or worse. The Keeper is the one who holds these things sacred, who honors them and knows how to work with them in a deep way. And the Crown, you could say, is crowned by them. Every aspect of them flows through them, and it's almost like an intuitive experience at that point. They are one with the element. Associating either state with a gender is silly. And then we have the Apprentice and the Champion, indicating different levels of awareness. And that's how I want to impart to you to think about court cards. There are people who will use them to describe different people. Sometimes in that case, the gendering can be helpful. If we're like, oh, this might represent a woman, or this might represent your feminine side, or what have you. In that case, in a reading, the fact that these cards have gender can perhaps be useful, depending on the reading and the situation. But when we see them in the context of a single suit, Page, Knight, Queen, King, what we're meant to understand is this ascension of skill level. A page is a beginner, like a fool at the beginning of the deck. A page doesn't know anything yet, but a page knows they don't know and they want to learn. A page is a student. As we move into Knight, Knight can be considered someone who is like a little further along in their studies, who is beginning to make use of what they have learned and doesn't know everything. A Knight is all about trial and error. A Knight has done some theoretical learning and is like, okay, it's time to get messy. It's time to throw stuff against the wall and see what works. It's time to test out what I've learned and gain seasoning and experience. You could think of a Knight like a journeyman. A Queen and King, now again, I don't buy into there being an authoritative difference between a Queen and King. I'm not here for that. You can think of them as different sides of ruling that suit. If you identify with masculine and feminine energy, which I often don't, you can look at how the divine feminine versus the divine masculine might interact with that suit, if that's meaningful for you. You can also look at the Queen of King as analogous with the Empress and the Emperor, the sense of nurturing and growth and the sense of mastery, where the Queen would really get into, like, have this really in-depth day-to-day understanding of an element, of how to nurture it, of how to show up for it, and the King kind of embodies it. And I'm going back to the Transient Light Tarot, which I shared with you, where these terms aren't gendered. We have Keeper and we have Crown. So as you can see, there's like a nuance there. There's also the option, if you're reading and want to not gender your tarot so much, of just looking at both the Queens and the Kings as ultimate authority, and not necessarily putting a lot more on it than that. All of these options are valid, and I teach the tarot in this particular aspect of the tarot in this way where I give you a lot of choices and options, because I think that we should have a lot of choices and options when it comes to gendered ideas. I, as a non-binary person, have found the concept of gender to mostly be limiting and frustrating for me. As a woman, I felt that way too, because I walk into a room and people perceive me to be female, and no matter how I identify, that's not a thing that necessarily changes. I mean, I guess it could change if I made dramatic changes to my appearance, but that would require me performing a gender identity rather than just being me in the way I want to be. And that has had a real dramatic experience, a real dramatic impact on my experiences. And so I want to give you the option to work with or not work with gender, because that's how I approach my life. There are times when it's important for me to speak as a woman because I've had experiences that are unique to women that are a result of living in a patriarchal society, and it would be wrong of me to deny those experiences and their existence and how they've affected me. And I have a right to claim that identity that has been in some ways used against me. And I also opt into non-binary culture, and I would say opt in, but I would say like I identify more strongly with it. Like, I don't view the actions I take as being feminine or masculine. I view those as constructs that society puts upon me. So that said, choose your own adventure with gender, and in so doing, choose your own adventure with the gendered cards of the tarot, or choose, as I do, to seek out decks that look at this in a different way, because it can only increase your nuanced understanding of the tarot. If there's a simple way for you to look at this now, whether it's gendered or not, and that allows you to get through a reading, then please take it. I've given you a couple options of how to view the Queen and King of the Tarot. So please feel free to use the approach that feels right for you. You can explore other nuances and ideas or not in your practice. As a reader, you're going to find that there are many times when you are making decisions about how to interpret a card. You are making decisions about what this card means, not just on paper, but to you, because there are many possible interpretations. And I'm here to tell you it's okay to do that. It's okay to look at the gendered cards and say, well, I don't do gender, so I am never going to read them as a gendered card, full stop. And allow that to be your reading experience. And because that's the intention you put in, that's the experience you have. It's okay to also be like, well, society is a society that has, you know, gender as part of its structure, so I'm going to use these to imbue that meaning into the real world readings I'm doing. That's also cool. You can decide to ascribe these qualities of divine feminine and divine masculine while also recognizing that people of all genders can have those qualities. You can decide to fully opt out and look at them another way. All of these options are available to you, and I leave it to you to make those choices. And I invite you, if you're a beginner and this feels very overwhelming, to simply choose of those choices I've just laid out for you, the one that resonates the most, the one that feels most like you. Read the tarot like you. You don't have to read it like me. Read it like yourself. Let's go through the suit of Pentacles. We begin with the ace. Every suit begins with an ace. The ace is a fresh start. It's a new beginning. It is a brand new endeavor. Aces are also lucky, just like in poker. I think they're lucky in poker, or are they just 1 point in poker? I think it depends on the game. Anyway, aces are a fresh start. Aces are always a positive fresh start. They can feel like renewal. They can feel like rebirth. They are the first step on a journey, and because the ace is associated with a suit, it gives us a greater idea than just getting, for example, the Fool, which also represents a fresh start. It contextualizes it. It says this is a fresh start in this area of your life. So the Ace of Pentacles is a fresh start in the area designated by the element of earth. We're talking about grounding, we're talking about money, we're talking about health, we're talking about stability. This is a fresh start for you to increase or enhance your stability. That's a great definition of an ace, by the way. The Ace of Pentacles, a fresh start to increase or enhance your stability. Now, what real world things can that transform into? Well, it could be a promotion. It could be a new job opportunity, right? Those are things traditionally associated with the Ace of Pentacles. It could also be a new decision to look after your health more carefully, perhaps embarking on an exercise regimen or an intuitive eating thing or a diet or something that you believe will improve your health. Or starting a new medication to improve your mental or physical health, to increase your stability in that way. Though mental health is often the realm of swords and cups, water and intellect. Mental health also is an area that is touched by the suit of Pentacles because it is about grounding. If your mental health is not good day to day, it's going to affect your stability. So the Ace of Pentacles could look like starting a new mend that was meant to help you feel more stable throughout the day. It's starting something fresh, in other words, in a way that will increase your stability. Now, if you're reading this, there's always at least two ways to look at a card. There's really myriad ways to look at a card, but when you're reading, you can interpret a card as being a piece of advice for you, or as being a, this is energy coming into your world, right? If I read the Ace of Pentacles as energy coming into my world, I might say something like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to get a new financial opportunity. Maybe I'm going to get connected for a new gig because I'm a freelancer. Maybe I'm going to get a new opportunity to make money. Maybe I'm going to get a new opportunity to do something about my health. If I was interpreting it as advice, I might ask myself how I can embody the Ace of Pentacles. It might cue me to kind of take stock of my stability at the moment, what makes me feel good, what makes me feel grounded, what makes me feel depleted and ungrounded, and ask myself, is there a new start I can make, a resolution I can make, and then follow through on that will improve my stability. Maybe that looks like something as simple as taking a walk every day. Maybe that looks like deciding to go to the doctor and have a well person visit. Maybe that looks like me taking stock of my finances and deciding to get on a debt repayment journey, or to seek out additional income for myself to make my financial situation more stable. So you can see the actual impact of this card can be varied. What we have in common is that it is a new start. It's going to make you more stable. We move then, by the way, here's the Ace of Pentacles. As you can see, this person is holding up a pentacle. There's like a sunrise behind them. They're like looking at the pentacle like, yes, yes, this is the thing, I'm working on it. Pentacles are kind of the most grounded of the suits, but aces are also always about epiphanies. And so if you've ever had an epiphany about how you manage your money or how you manage your health, and you're like, oh man, if I just did this, I'd feel so much better. That's the Ace of Pentacles. That's the type of epiphany that we're looking at. In the Smith-Waite deck, aces are always depicted as a hand coming out of the sky, like literally handing you the element. So in the Smith-Waite deck, the Ace of Pentacles is literally a big hand in the sky with a huge pentacle. Like, here you go. Big earth energy for you, just for you. We next have the Two of Pentacles, which is a card of balance. If we've just started our fresh start, we're going on this journey of newness in our life concerning our grounding and stability. We now find that it's not as simple as just like, take the step, take the step, take the step, as we like it to be. Instead, we already have existing circumstances in our life that we must balance with our desire to do the new thing. So the Two of Pentacles is all about balance, and it is all about duality. And specifically, it is about the balance between the change we are making in our life and the current status quo, and not upsetting the apple cart so much that we're unable to focus on the change that we want in our life. And also keeping the good things, right? Not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So if we are starting a new fitness regimen because we want to get in really good shape, we must balance that with our existing responsibilities and our awareness of how much time we have each day. And we won't just overcommit ourselves, hopefully, to doing something that'll take hours every day, knowing that that won't be something we can stick to. Instead, a more balanced approach would be to say, okay, here's the goal I have. Here's the reality of my day-to-day situation. What can I do to give airtime to both things? What can I do to keep these things in a healthy balance so I can be working on my goal and can be doing so without upsetting my current stability, right? If you commit to a new fitness regimen that requires you to be at the gym 3 hours a day every day, and you're working full time, that's a lot of hours suddenly that you're out of the house, and that might preclude you from like ever having a social engagement again. And also, what if you get sick? And also, what if you just wake up one day and feel kind of bad and don't want to do it? Does that mean in your heart that you have abandoned your goal, or does it just mean like, yeah, that's a part of it. Like, as long as I'm consistent every other day, having the occasional blip doesn't matter. That's what it looks like to be balanced. And you may choose, as you look further at that, to say, okay, I'm going to balance my desire to get in good shape with my desire to maintain my otherwise daily stability and wholeness of my life, allowing myself to have friends, allowing myself to have off days, allowing myself to take care of other aspects of my stability. Maybe I will start this regime that instead of it being 3 hours at the gym every day, it's 1 hour several days a week, or 3 hours on Saturday, but during the rest of the week I do 20-minute workouts or 40-minute workouts depending on what's possible for me. And I'm also resting because that's a part of balance. So you can see that the Two of Pentacles is about compromise. If we were looking at this from the standpoint of money, if we're going after a new money-making endeavor or going after something like a debt repayment goal, we would balance that with like, okay, but I still have to make sure I can just continue to pay my bills and live my life in a comfortable way. I still have to make sure that like I can eat a dinner and it's not the same ramen every night and I don't hate my life, because that won't make me feel stable either, right? So we begin to understand that there's this sense of compromise with the Two of Pentacles. We are balancing the change we want to make with the reality of our day-to-day lives and allowing that growth to happen at a stable pace. That is the nature of Pentacles. We have growth and it has a slow, steady pace. If you think about children, you don't notice that they're growing when you live with them day to day. You notice when you look back at pictures and you're like, holy crap, he's gotten so big, right? And I'm Aunt Rory, so I go visit my niece and my nephews and I'm like, friggin' how old are you now? I can't keep up. But my sister lives with them every day and it's not a big deal because, you know, she doesn't see the infinitesimal amount of growth that my nephew achieves, you know, by going to bed one morning and waking up the next day, right? He's the same kid as far as she's concerned, but over time that growth happens. So it's this growth that doesn't affect our stability in a dramatic way, but over time does have dramatic results. That is the type of growth that Pentacles are about. Let's talk about the Three of Pentacles. You guys, I feel like these tarot card series are going to be like very detailed and very nuanced because that's who I am as a person. So I have stated that at the beginning that they're good for beginners, but I do want to say, like, I give you permission, if it's a lot of information to absorb, to not listen to it all in one setting, or to pause and reflect as often as you need to, because I already know I'm giving you a lot of information. This is who I am, y'all. I'm a Virgo. Let's talk about the Three of Pentacles. As you can see in this card here, we have 3 pentacles on a wall. They've been painted on a wall. There are also 3 figures in the card. The pentacles, if you look closely, are also they're also drawn with varying levels of precision. I'm trying to show this card on screen if you're watching. So we have one pentacle that really looks like the classical pentacle, like super realism, looks really, really good. We have another pentacle that looks kind of okay. You know, it's like, yeah, that's definitely a pentacle. And we have a third pentacle that's definitely identifiable as a pentacle. But if you look close, there's like paint kind of dripping from it. It's like, it is drawn with a little less mastery than the other 2. And the point of this here is all of these pentacles get the job done, right? We can get the job done ourselves if there's something we want to do or learn about. But if we want to improve our game, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can go seek out someone who's already good at it, right? This is about seeking out help and seeking out teaching. This can look like an actual literal helper relationship where we seek out someone and we're like, you know this, teach it to me. Or, you know this, do it for me, right? There's 2 methods. I forget who told me this, but it was like on an entrepreneurial broadcast, and they were saying there's 2 things that you can do to grow your business. You can do DIY, do it yourself, or WTC, write the check. So the Three of Pentacles invites you not to do everything DIY. The Three of Pentacles invites you to go seek a teacher rather than spending 12 hours banging your head against a wall until you understand something. Go find someone who can explain it to you in 15 minutes so you understand it, because they have the knowledge and experience to get you there. Instead of you just kind of spinning your wheels and getting confused until you magically get it. You can also go seek out someone to do the thing for you. You can seek out someone and be like, I'm never going to be as good at you as good at this as you are. Like, If I need a lawyer for some reason, I don't know why, maybe I'm making some kind of a special important contract in my business dealings or whatever, if I need a lawyer, I'm probably not going to try to DIY it. I'm not going to call someone and be like, teach me about law so I can write this contract myself. I'm going to call a lawyer and be like, write this contract for me and explain it to me so I understand what I'm signing. You know what I mean? So this is about calling in help and also like allowing yourself to have a knowledge of, I'm empowering myself by seeking help from someone who knows more than me. Doesn't make them better or worse, because there are probably topics about which you know more than them. It just means that we allow for this collaborative approach to moving ourselves forward. We don't have to do everything ourselves. That is the message of the Three of Pentacles. As we move into the Four of Pentacles, we face our first setback. The fours, I'm not going to get too deep into numerology in this broadcast, but fours in general are about work and play, rest and motion, and the push and pull between those things. So the fours in tarot often represent a pause. Now the Four of Pentacles, we have a clear setback of being concerned about our resources. Now this is shown in this deck as a guy who is sitting on a trunk that is probably filled with his money or his, possessions of value. And he's obviously so worried about people getting his trunk and his stuff that he is sitting on it himself to protect it. There's a very big sense of self-protection here. Now, there is an obvious implication when it comes to money, right? Like this card, if it comes up as advice, might look like protect your money. Or it might look like, hey, is all you're doing protecting your money? Maybe you should be, investing it or putting it at least in a high yield savings account so it can grow instead of just shoving under your mattress. Now, if we take it away from money, because yes, there's obvious implications for the financial side of your life, which is true of many cards in the suit of Pentacles, and remind ourselves that Pentacles are about our stability. It's not just money. We might look at this with our health. We might ask ourselves, what is it that we're protecting ourselves from? Do we need to be more protective? For example, do we need to go around wearing a mask because there are particulates in the air? We've been having wildfire smoke haze on and off all summer here where I live in New York. So a way for the Four of Pentacles to apply to my health is me going out and putting a mask so that that wildfire haze doesn't get into my lungs. I am protecting the resource that is my health. We may look at it as an energetic type of thing, where if we are in relationship with someone, whether it's I'm not putting a judgment on whether it's an emotional relationship, a work relationship, a day-to-day relationship, someone we see regularly, and we feel depleted every time we have a conversation with them, we may become very, very protective of our energy with good reason, right? If we know that every time we have a conversation with someone, we just feel exhausted afterwards, we choose at that point to protect our energy, perhaps by avoiding that person or by strategizing. Here's what I'm going to say if they say this, or here's how I'll cut the conversation short, giving ourselves some boundaries in that way. That's what the Four of Pentacles can look like for energy. So the Four of Pentacles is a pause, and it's a pause for you to ask yourself what resources need protection right now. And it can go both ways. There are times when the Four of Pentacles means you really want to be careful, Again, if it's about your health, it might be like something like masking up and something like deciding not to, like go to parties or stuff like that. If your immune system is compromised, for example. If it is about your money, it might be like, I'm not going to spend very much right now. I'm going to save my money for a rainy day. The flip side may look like the Four of Pentacles, especially if it comes up reversed. I will talk about reversals in a separate episode, but suffice it to say that a reversal doesn't always mean the opposite. It's more like Bizarro World. It's more like I've slipped through a dimensional portal and this is the weird twisted way this card is represented in this dimension. So the Four of Pentacles here might mean like you've taken the protection too far if it's reversed. It might mean like you have been so focused on protecting your money that you haven't spent anything on yourself, and now your life is kind of miserable even though you can afford to, whatever, eat out every so often, or, you know, buy yourself something nice instead of wearing threadbare clothes, right? If you have been so self-protective of your energy that you are afraid to go make a new friend, that's how that might manifest. If you've been so self-protective of your health that now your immune system is actually weakened, that might be a manifestation of that. Or so self-protective around an injury that you had that you don't want to re-injure yourself, that now you've grown weak because you haven't actually exercised those muscles. That may be how that manifests. And of course, that's a judgment call for each of us to make, right? At any given moment, how we manage our stability is a moving target. There are times when the way we need to balance it is by being more outgoing, and there are times when the way we need to balance it is by being more protective. And the Four of Pentacles is a clue that it's time to look at that. It's time to address that question. Let's move on to the Five of Pentacles. The Five of Pentacles is one of the tarot's big bummer cards, my friends. I will be calling these cards out as I get to them, because there are a handful of cards that people get in a reading and it just like never feels great. And I will say every card has different levels of nuance. Sometimes I remember sharing about this in the Major Arcana. Sometimes the Tower is the best thing that can happen for you. It still feels like shitty chaos when you're in it, though. Now, the Five of Pentacles is a card about asking for help and needing help. The Five of Pentacles is a card about your basic needs not being met, or at the very least being in question. You being like, I don't know that I will be able to provide for myself. Whether this is financially, like, shit, I don't know if I'm going to make rent. Whether this is in terms of health, like, shit, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue to function because I'm ill or because I've injured myself. Whether this is about your energy, where you're like, shit, I don't know if I can get out of bed because my mental health has deteriorated to this point. That's the Five of Pentacles. It is a state of need. It is a state of lack. And it's important that we acknowledge that this is something that everyone experiences multiple times throughout their lives, because there's a lot of shame associated with the Five of Pentacles. This card often depicts people who are they homeless? Are they nomadic? Are they refugees? Did they have a home and now cannot return, or they simply can't get back tonight because whatever their method of travel broke down? They're out in the cold, there's a storm, and you can see there is a lit up, warm, beautiful building behind them. And this is imagery that's common to many tarot decks for the Five of Pentacles. And like the clear thing is, like, they need help, and they need the help of the people from this warm, well-lit, well-appointed house behind them. And the question is, will they get it or not? Because the Five of Pentacles is a time when you have to look for help outside of yourself. Now, that can be a shame trigger for a lot of people. It can be frightening for anyone, because when you ask for help, it's never a guarantee that you will receive it. And it can be traumatic for anyone who has ever asked for help but gotten it with strings attached. You know, the question of like, I need to get this help for myself. I don't have a choice, but what will it cost me? Unknown. So the Five of Pentacles has a lot of bad feelings associated with it. And one of the things I say when this card comes up for myself or another is that every single human needs help from other people from time to time. This is a normal part of life, and it's worth investing in getting comfortable with needing help, because we're human. It's a part of our lives. This doesn't mean it's great. You know, it doesn't feel great in the moment. It doesn't feel great to feel depleted, to feel like, oh God, I can't meet my needs by myself. But we don't have to feel ashamed of it. We can instead feel like, okay, this is a human experience, and this is what I'm experiencing right now. We move from the Five of Pentacles into the Six of Pentacles. This is an important pairing. The Five is our bummer card. Fives are often cards with like some level of chaos and strife. Five is kind of a number of chaos and strife. We then move into the Six of Pentacles, which shows a well-to-do person placing money in the hands of people who have less. In a literal sense, this can mean doing something like donating to those who have less, donating food or goods or money to those who help the homeless, or directly to a homeless person, donating to a cause that you believe will you know, help other people. I just gave some money to Planned Parenthood because right now we are in a real fight for women's rights to take care of their reproductive health, as that is being challenged across the country here in America. It can look like you just offering practical help to someone. It can be as simple as holding a door for somebody whose hands are full, or it can be as meaningful as overhearing that the person in front of you at the supermarket just had their card declined and being like, hey, I've got it. Now, again, there's a lot of feelings about this, and this card represents both giving and receiving, so you may be on either side of it when the card comes up. I'll remind you, it comes after the Five of Pentacles. The question with the Five of Pentacles was, will I be able to get the help I need? Will my needs be met? And what will that look like? Because I have to ask for help outside of myself. The Six of Pentacles answer is yes. Yes, that help is available. And the Six of Pentacles, although it is about one person who has more giving to someone who has less, is grounded in the concept of reciprocity. It's grounded in the concept of equity. I have more, so I help you out. Maybe you have more on another day, so you help me out. And it's not just about money, right? It can be, like I said, about that practical care of opening a door for someone. It can be like showing up and doing somebody's dishes if you know they've been really depressed. It can be like calling every day and checking in on your friend who just had a breakup and you don't know how they feel, and you're not going to make them reach out. You're going to call and check yourself, you know? The Six of Pentacles is about giving and receiving. And often I find it comes up when there is a block on one side or another of that equation. Whether we feel we have been receiving too much and now wish to turn around and be more generous, or whether, and this is what I see most often in the clients I read for, which is its own subset, we have a hard time receiving. We're good with giving, maybe over giving, but receiving is challenging for us. And the Six of Pentacles is very much about balancing the scales. There's a reason that this is often depicted as someone who is clearly well off, giving of their coins and their resources to people who are less so. It's about equity. It's about balancing the scales. It's about saying, I have more and you have less, so here I'm evening it out a little bit. And we can't, like, this is what it looks like to be a foot soldier of justice in the world. We can't fix all of life's ills, but we can take a look and say, I've got more than you. When I have an abundance, I am going to give some of the extra to help someone who has a lack. Right? That doesn't mean I give so much that I myself have a lack, because that doesn't solve the problem. It just turns it around. It means that we recognize that, like, what goes around comes around, and when we're doing well, we try to help people out. And when we're doing poorly, we can ask for help, because if we were doing well, we would help people out, right? Like, there's that sense of kind of, that's the way the world should work. So the Six of Pentacles is about balancing the scales in a big way. We next come to the Seven of Pentacles. We've gotten through our first hurdle, right? We've been on this journey. We found that we didn't have our needs met in the most basic of ways and needed to ask for help. We've received that help. Now we're at the Seven of Pentacles. We're back on our journey. What were we trying to build in our lives before all this happened, right? Because life gets in the way. Now we have an opportunity to return to it and focus on it and focus on the seeds we've planted. The Seven of Pentacles is a beautifully boring card. And it depicts, generally, a figure working on a plant that is full of pentacles, like a gardener or farmer. They are tending to the plant that is bearing the pentacles. The pentacles are still on the plant. They're not ready to be picked yet. And so very specifically, this is about goals and things that you are creating in your life that have not come to fruition, but they're still worth focusing on. You give them time and attention so that they can come to fruition. I always talk about tomatoes. When you grow a tomato plant, it takes months and months and months before you see fruit. And then it takes more time before the fruit becomes edible, right? You get a plant, it takes months, it's growing. You need to water the plant, and you need to maybe keep weeds away. You need to maybe address if there's like insects on the plant that are being deleterious to its health. And then eventually you get some flowers, and then you get some tomatoes, and you're like, oh my God, a tomato. And it's a little green thing. and you need to keep watering the plant and keep making sure that the plant gets sun and gets what it needs and gets the care it needs, so that that little green tomato eventually becomes a beautiful red tomato that you eat, and it's delicious, and everyone knows garden grown tomatoes are better. And that's where we're at right now. We're at the little green tomato. The Seven of Pentacles is the place at which there are those who would walk away because they haven't gotten their instant gratification yet, and we're choosing to continue to put energy into this thing because we know it's going to grow into something worthwhile. When the Seven of Pentacles comes up, it is always an indication to keep going even if you haven't seen results yet. It's always an indication that you're doing the right thing and to keep doing it, rather than throw in the towel because you haven't seen the results. Things happen in their time, and you have to allow for that, and you have to continue to show up for it. In a very practical way, I talked about tomatoes. This could look like if you've been working towards a savings goal. Maybe you're working towards early retirement or just general retirement. Maybe you're working towards buying a house. You're not there yet. And it's annoying and boring at this point. You're no longer like, yeah, I'm motivated by this goal. It's in like year 3 and you're like, this goal is boring and I can't have dinner out tonight because of my stupid savings goal. And this is when the Seven of Pentacles shows up and encourages you to find a way to keep going. And maybe that looks like some balancing work. Maybe it's like, all right, sometimes I will treat myself, but I'm also going to continue to put money away from this. So maybe I'm not going to treat myself very extravagantly because this goal still matters, right? If this is a health goal and it is about you, whatever, being more active in your life, and you haven't had the results you wanted yet. Maybe the results were for your body to look a certain way, or to feel a certain amount of strength, or to have a number on the scale. You haven't gotten those results yet, but you've probably improved your health. And this is your signal that it's important to keep going and that your health is a worthy endeavor. We next move into the Eight of Pentacles. We are moving closer towards our goal at the Eight of Pentacles, and we begin to get very specific. We're not just about, yes, I continue to show up day to day for the work. We begin to be more nuanced about it. The Eight of Pentacles is about perfecting our craft. It's about honing our vision. So here, on this card, we see somebody who is like creating a potion. They have a bunch of different ingredients, and they are carefully, like, is it a potion? Is it dinner? They're carefully seasoning this thing. Whatever it is, they're doing it according to a very particular plan. They want it to come out a certain way, and they're being thoughtful and nuanced in how that comes out. In the traditional Smith-Waite imagery on this card, we see somebody hammering out pentacles like a smith. And they're creating pentacles, and there's other pentacles lined up, and it's clear that this smith is perfecting their craft, getting each pentacle just so. And this is a time, this card comes up when it's time for you to perfect your craft around your stability. I'll say it again. This card comes up when it's time for you to perfect your craft around your stability. If you're like seeking out physical health, this might mean taking a close look at your energy and asking yourself in a very nuanced way if there are small tweaks you can make to improve that. It might be, if you're looking at your financial health, this might be a time to check in and say, okay, what have the last few weeks been? What have I spent? What have I received? Are there small tweaks I can make? Are there small leaks I can clean up? Maybe, I don't know, something small that I'm spending consistent money on that I could do a little more efficiently. If I'm buying gas every week, could I get a gas card and get a discount on that sometime? Or if I'm, a freelancer and I'm working in a gig economy, could I start quoting a little higher? Or could I work on my negotiations so that I get a little more value out of every job? This is about perfecting your craft. If it's about a relationship and the energy between you and another person, it might be about, what do they need? What do I need? How can I make this relationship feel just a little better so that overall both of us are blessed with better stability as we interact with each other? It's nuance. This card is about nuance. We move into the Nine of Pentacles. Nines and tens are both cards of completion in the tarot. In numerology, both numbers represent completion. Nines kind of represent completion, and tens kind of represent coming full circle. So we see the Nine of Pentacles as a self-possessed woman. She is in a garden. She's got pentacles growing on trees. She's got a glass of wine. She's reading a book. She's got her cat dozing at her feet. She is in this beautiful environment that she herself has created for herself, which doesn't necessarily mean brick by brick. It could mean that she has gone out and earned the money to create this sanctuary for herself, right? She has created a sanctuary in her life that is inherently restorative by working hard for it. She's done the work, and now she is able to reap the rewards. This is about self-possession. This is about hard work paying off. This is about reaching your goal and being able to enjoy it. And it's a cue to take the time to actually enjoy it rather than immediately setting a new goal. It's a cue to say, yes, I completed this. Let me fully embody it. Let me enjoy this goal. Let me lean into it and sink into its completion. Otherwise, what was the point? We next have the Ten of Pentacles. That brings us to the end of the numbered cards. As you can see, the Ten of Pentacles shows a house with pentacles on the house. There are still pentacles in the trees. There's pentacles on buildings in the distance. And there is a family in a garden which has some pentacles around it. And they're just enjoying each other's company. Now, this is about coming full circle. Generationally, this family happens to be represented by the page, knight, queen, and king of this deck. Like, they're the same figures. The artist has chosen to do that. This family has come full circle. The parents have created enough stability that they are able to now pass on extra resources to the next generation. So it is about full circle. They've created a new beginning out of their overflow. They're doing well enough for themselves that they have put a new generation into the world, and they're teaching that generation with everything they've learned so the next generation can evolve even further. So we're coming full circle, and in coming full circle, there's this sense of generosity and reciprocity. We revisit that. We revisit, like, I've done well for myself, so I take care of others. And there's also this sense of evolution. There's a sense of now we get to appreciate not just what I've built for myself, but what has built around me because of that sense of both resourcefulness and kindness. The Ten of Pentacles is a family card. It is a card of legacy. It often comes up when, again, we have family depicted here, and it's like a well-off family's house. So it comes up in ancestor work, absolutely. The Ten of Pentacles will come up when you need to consider generations in either direction from you, older and younger. It can also be a card of chosen family. I think especially about the LGBTQ community. And I read a study recently that it was actually kind of a grim study, and it basically was, what the people doing the study found was that LGBTQ individuals who seek out and create chosen families for themselves have much better health outcomes than LGBTQ individuals who do not do this. And specifically, this is a community that in many cases, you know, you have individuals who are rejected by their families and communities growing up because they have not grown up into the person that, you know, perhaps the family or community was hoping, especially if we're talking about a very religious community or whatever. And the thing that creates those better outcomes is chosen family. The thing that creates those better outcomes is finding people that you can still show up for, both in terms of practical resource and in terms of like relational resource, like being kind to each other, showing up for each other. And those with chosen families just did better, had longer lifespans, had better financial situations. So Ten of Pentacles often represents chosen family just as well as family for me. It's the people you choose to share your resources and your love with. Hydration checkpoint. I'm taking a sip of tea, and I'm going to give you a chance to reflect. And if you're a patron and you have any questions, this is a great time to put them in there, or comments. I know I have many readers amongst my patrons, so if you have comments, please feel free to voice them throughout this series. I think we can only be elevated by the nuance of these different opinions. All right, we're going into the court cards. I gave a little spiel about the court cards earlier and what they might mean to you in different contexts, and gendered and non-gendered contexts as you see fit. So I'm going to just go through and I'm going to treat these as different levels of mastery and different ways, once you've attained mastery, of how you look at that. We have the Page of Pentacles. Now the Page of Pentacles is a beginner. The Page of Pentacles, in a very practical sense, is someone who wants to improve their stability. They want to improve whether it's their health, their mental or physical health, whether it is their relational health, how they feel within their community or within their day-to-day experience with other people, or their kind of energetic health, you know, feeling good rather than depleted at the end of a day, or, of course, their money. They want to improve their level of stability. They have a goal in mind. That goal is improvement, and they have a couple of ideas of what they want to see happen, not necessarily how. So they're out doing, like, they're ready to start learning. Pages are always students, whether they are a literal student or whether they're like a student of life, you know, and they're like, I don't know how I'm going to learn this, but I'm going to figure it out, right? Pages are always students. And we see the Page of Pentacles in this deck depicted at a crossroads, flipping a coin. Because the Page of Pentacles knows that they don't know. They don't always, if they have two paths to choose from, they don't necessarily have the knowledge and experience to tell them which path is better. So they're like, I don't know. Here's the map. I'll flip a coin, but I am going to get started. I'm going to start my journey. So the Page of Pentacles can look like opening your first savings account. It can look like deciding that you are going to learn all about your body and any conditions you have and your physical health so that you can really, you know, begin to attain more mastery over your health. It can look like beginning to learn energetically about what it is you need. It can look like taking a mental health journey, perhaps starting a mindfulness journey, or perhaps starting a new medication, or perhaps seeking out a diagnosis for symptoms that have affected you. It can look like relationally taking a journey to understand the give and take of the energy in your day-to-day so that you can feel better. The Page of Pentacles is starting, and the Page of Pentacles is ready to learn. And the Page of Pentacles may seek out resources. And if this comes as a card for advice, that may be what I tell the person to do. If they're like, if the answer to the question is be the Page of Pentacles, I'm going to be like, you need to be a student. Think about what's not working for you in terms of stability and ask yourself, where do I need teaching? Either you can seek out this teaching, maybe there's a course on it, maybe a little bit of Googling will, you know, give you a couple of next steps, or you can, you know, kind of acknowledge to yourself, I need teaching on this, and look for an opportunity to learn over the next coming days, because often if we look for teaching, it does show up for us. After the Page of Pentacles, we have the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles has begun doing the work. The Knight of Pentacles has gained some knowledge, just enough knowledge to get yourself in trouble. The Knight of Pentacles knows a little bit about money, about taking care of his or her health, about how their energy fluctuates around different people, around any of these kind of topics. The Knight of Pentacles has done some learning and has some idea of like, kind of, well, like, this is good. Like, if I eat protein and I work out, that helps me get stronger, I think, right? Like, the Knight of Pentacles has done some learning and is now seeking experiential learning. The Knight of Pentacles has an understanding of the theory, and it's time to go out and test those theories. It's time to do trial and error. And the Knight of Pentacles is motivated. Knights are active. Knights are always on a quest. They're knights, right? So the Knight is like, yeah, here's the theory. Here are the ideas. I guess I understand them, but now the rubber hits the road. It's time to get out and do this. So if the Knight of Pentacles was trying to learn about investing, the Knight of Pentacles is going to put a few dollars in the account and actually start doing some investing, hopefully carefully and wisely. You know, hopefully they're not like risking their whole house when they only have a very limited understanding. If the Knight of Pentacles wanted to start on a physical health journey, the Knight of Pentacles is going to go do it now. You know, like they're going to do that journey, and they're going to like learn day to day what makes them feel good, what's too fast to pace, what the right weights for them to lift are, if they're lifting weights, all of that kind of stuff. If the Knight of Pentacles is doing this more kind of energetic review of like where their energy goes, they're going to start identifying some problems and trying to solve them. If they're like, okay, well, I feel depleted every time I talk to this person in my life, or every time I come home from work, they're going to look at that carefully and be like, it's time to start solving that problem. Maybe I need a new job, or maybe I need a, like, you know, a lateral move into a different department, or maybe I need to set some boundaries with this person, right? They begin to like start doing the troubleshooting. The Knight of Pentacles is active. Have you tried turning it off and on again? They are doing whatever they can. They're doing trial and error. We move up to the Queen of Pentacles. Now, the Queen of Pentacles is one with her sense of resource in every sense of the word. The Queen of Pentacles is in deep relationship with her money, not because she's greedy or money obsessed, but because she knows that to be in a relationship with it allows her to move with it and rebalance it as needed, and it begins to feel intuitive rather than feeling like a stressful set of chores. The Queen of Pentacles checks in on her money, not obsessively, but enough to know what she needs it for, and has a spending plan and has a good understanding of how money works and how her money can serve her rather than be a burden on her. The Queen of Pentacles similarly has a good relationship with her body. She has learned how to check in with her body and give her body the different things it needs on different days, both long-term and short-term. The Queen of Pentacles is in touch with her physical health and with her mental health. Notice that none of these things I'm saying means everything is perfect for the Queen of Pentacles. She probably is in a better situation than the Knight or the Page because she's been working at this longer and has built experience. But specifically, that experience has allowed her the wisdom to make decisions when things aren't perfect. To go like, okay, I live intimately with my money and my physical health. So when something's out of whack, I know some things I can do to address that and get things back into balance. I know how to live lean for a little while if something unexpected happens, and I've built up some savings because I know from past experience that that will help me. So if there's a financial problem, I have planned ahead for it, and also I know how to weather it the hard way. Both things. If there's a physical problem, I know how to take good care of my body. If there's a relational problem, I know how to set healthy boundaries. I know how to recognize when there's a give and take that's out of whack, and I know some steps I can take to repair it. So the Queen of Pentacles has this vast practical working knowledge, and she's still using it every day. She is intimately engaged in a relationship. As I share with you about the Queen and King, these are my interpretations that I've arrived at over the years of reading these cards. I happen to use, you know, like when I say Queen of Pentacles, I will say she. When I say King, I will say he. Sometimes I will use they, depending on who I'm reading for. Often I go to they, them pronouns in readings because they're neutral. I don't want the person to feel that I am assigning them a specific gender role. I also want the person to be able to relate to someone, you know, and not tune it out because I use a pronoun that, you know, isn't their pronoun or whatever. So I'll use they, them because it can mean anyone, you know. As I'm speaking to you, I happen to be referring to the Queen as she because she's a queen on this card. And I'm describing her to you as an example of like, this is what this type of mastery looks like. You may arrive at different interpretations of Queen and King of Pentacles, and I encourage you to. I encourage you to think of both cards as someone who has attained mastery and a healthy like sense of equity and equality with the energy of this suit. Someone who really, really, really knows their shit around it and knows how to operate in a very healthy way. Let's move on to the King. I tend to use the word steward when it comes to kings because the King stewards the resources. A king has responsibilities. And this is, again, you know, like, this is true of both queens and kings. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt that I'm not making a gendered pronouncement here. But think of the king of the land as someone who stewards all the resources of the land. The king is not just responsible for himself. The king is responsible for himself and others, and so he has taken the time and educated himself, as well as done trial and error thoughtfully and mindfully to really get this right. So the King of Pentacles stewards the resources of both himself and his community. And he is able to do so in a thoughtful way. He does not do so in a vacuum. He makes sure that he's informed by others around him. So again, we have this element of like not having to do it all by yourself, so that he can make wise decisions that go beyond his wisdom, right? The king has advisors so that the king doesn't have to independently know about every single subject. The advisors tell him, and the king is able to then make wiser choices because he has this council of people he can turn to for wisdom. The king knows how to steward resources carefully. The king looks ahead. The king looks ahead and says, okay, I know that in the winter it's a leaner time than the harvest time, so we have to make sure we have our stores ahead of us. This is going to affect every aspect of our lives. Maybe also we shouldn't be working as hard in the winter because it's going to be colder. Our bodies are going to be just working harder to keep us warm. We'll have other concerns. So the king plans for wellness. The king plans for stability, knowing that the forces of the universe contribute to unstable situations, knowing that things ebb and flow. The king is like, here's what I'm doing to plan for stability, even though there will be times when we have more income and less income, even though there will be times when we are very healthy and times when we are ill and need care, even though there will be times when we feel very mentally healthy and times when our energy is really at a low, even though there will be times where we're all getting along and times when everyone's mad at everyone else. The king's job is to plan for stability in all of those situations. And very importantly, this is by acknowledging those different struggles. It's not by ignoring them. It's not by like stiff upper lipping it. The King of Pentacles is like, all right, we're going to have to set aside resources when times are flush so that we can get through the lean times. We're going to have to create resources for our mental health when we're feeling good so that when we are having a really difficult time, we can turn to those resources and get ourselves through. We're going to have to create systems for how we deal with disagreements when things are feeling good between everyone in the room, so that when things are feeling at odds and full of conflict, it doesn't evolve into fisticuffs, and instead we can use our systems and have a wise conversation and move through it with minimal crappy impact. The king plans ahead for stability. That is what the King of Pentacles does. And you can see how the King and Queen of Pentacles are really two sides of the same coin. You know, they're really, they have mastery over this element of Pentacles, and they have different perspectives that allow for empowerment around this element of Earth, of stability. All right, my loves, there we have it. That is the element of Earth, or the suit of Pentacles. And I'm going to move right into Which You Got This, which is a period of the podcast where I give you an easy takeaway, an exercise you can do right away. So I'm going to suggest to you that you do a couple readings just with the suit of Pentacles. As you go through this, doing these readings with just small portions of the deck can help you really get in touch with that portion of the deck instead of having to take it all at once. That can be overwhelming. So you may choose to read for yourself. You might choose to think about an area of your life where your stability could improve or where you would like to see a change and do a reading around that. You may also choose to read not about yourself, because I will say, reading about yourself is often a reason people get into the tarot, and is also very emotional. And when we're learning the tarot, our emotions can cloud our judgment. So, I mean, that can happen even when we're tarot experts, to be honest with you. So another thing you could do is read about someone you don't even know. And that's my Which You Got This tip. I'm going to encourage you to do a reading about a situation that doesn't affect you. Do a reading where you don't have skin in the game, because that's going to allow you to be a little more objective. And if possible, build some learning into this. If possible, do it in such a way that you can check up on the situation. So a thing I often do with students is I ask them to do a reading about a sports event that they're not interested in. So I I had a student I was teaching, and it happened to be during football season, and like big deal football season, like where things are starting to heat up. And I was like, okay, I want you to do a 3-card reading, you know, before we next get together on how the Patriots game will go on Thursday. My husband's a big Patriots fan. And she doesn't know anything about football. She doesn't know anything about the New England Patriots. So this was an ideal situation because she was able to just lay out cards and be like, okay, so we're in the context of a football game. She knows enough to know it's like, okay, it's like a competition between two teams, right? You know, and here are the 3 cards. And, you know, therefore, you know, here's how things are going to happen. And this is how you begin to learn how to speak as a tarot reader too, because you don't always have the context that you wish you had. And when we're reading from ourselves, sometimes we think we have more context than we do. When we're reading for ourselves, we're like, oh, well, this means that because that, you know, matches with something in our lives. But of course, that can change at any moment, right? Tomorrow, something could happen. Your job situation could change dramatically. You know, a relationship could change dramatically. Someone new could come into your life and change, you know, like upset the apple cart. And suddenly the thing you thought is no longer relevant. So we begin to read and discuss the cards, understanding that the specifics may elude us, but as long as we talk through it, we're going to get something workable and usable. So try this at home. Read around something that doesn't matter to you. Read around the outcome of a sporting event that you don't care about. Read around the outcome of someone else's work drama. You know, like if you have a friend who loves to gossip and tell you about their work drama, do a reading about some character in the work drama that you don't have any particular investment in, you know, knowing that your friend will tell you in a few days. If you love to read fiction or watch TV, do a reading around what's going to happen in the next episode, in the next chapter for the main character, and then read it. Like, these are how you can begin to stretch your skills as a tarot reader. And your job at this point is not to have a reading that's dead on balls accurate, to quote my cousin Vinny. Your job at this point is to look at the reading you did and then look at what happened and find the parallels, and also find the places where maybe you put your own, maybe you, like, you know, your interpretation fell short and perhaps you were putting some of your own ideas on it, you know, where you didn't have a good perspective. Your only job right now is to learn, in other words. So if you do a 3-card reading and it's whatever, I'll pull 3 cards right now. Let's say you do a 3-card reading and you get the Queen of Pentacles, and then you get the 5 of Pentacles, and then you get the Ace of Pentacles. Let's say you try to tell a story. Well, the Queen of Pentacles is a woman who is like super in touch with her money and very well resourced and knows about her resources, but she falls on hard times. That's what the 5 of Pentacles is about. She thought she was good and then she wasn't doing well. She falls on hard times and the 5 of Pentacles happens and it throws her for a loop, and actually because of that incredible hardship, she then makes a new start. Ace of Pentacles, she decides to go get a new job for herself, or she decides to change something in her life. Maybe that's your reading. That's not a bad interpretation, right? And then you look at what actually happened. Like if this is a, you know, a character that you're reading about in a fiction book that you're reading or something, you might have an idea of who the Queen of Pentacles is and what might happen. And then you might look back and be like, okay, I put my own shit on that. That's not how it happened. It happened like this, but I can still see how that reflects to the 5 of Pentacles. If you're reading about a sports game, who could the Queen of Pentacles represent? Does it represent someone on the team? Does it represent an aspect of the team? Like, you know, like the team that is so well prepared and practices so carefully that they always do really well. You know, like could it be that aspect of their consciousness? But then 5 of Pentacles, someone gets sick or someone gets an ankle injury and can't participate. So then all their preparations are out the window and they have to make a new plan. That could be another way to interpret it. Make the interpretation. Do some thinking about it, and then look back and say, okay, I see what happened. How does what happened fit with these cards? And how does that differ and align with what I said? What did I get right? What did I not see? And your goal is not to punish yourself or be 100% right all the time. Your goal is just to like find those interesting connections and connect the dots a little. And that's how you become a better reader. All right, my loves. That brings us to the end of our episode. As always, I'm going to leave you with a song. Because we were talking about the element of earth today, I'm going to play you an unreleased song of mine called Into the Wild, Wild Woods. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I realized that though I'm an earth sign, I really value the element of earth. I don't write about the element of earth very often. So I'm going to play you this song called Into the Wild, Wild Woods, because there's nothing earthier than the friggin' woods. And this song a little bit celebrates the mystery of the woods. It celebrates how you can get lost so easily in the woods, and that's both good and bad, right? There's the adventure of it. Like life, you start on a new endeavor and you know it's exciting in part because you don't know what's coming. And you learn as you go, and you gain more information as you go and more of a nuanced understanding as you go. And ultimately, that is what the suit of earth is about. It's about one foot in front of the other, taking information as you have it and trying to get a little, 1% better every day. So I thank you so much for being a part of this broadcast. If you like the music you hear on this broadcast, this song is unreleased, but you can find my released music by searching my name on your favorite streaming app or music place, Rory Kelly, RORIE KELLY. I hope you will subscribe wherever you're listening so that you can get the rest of this series and, maybe check back some of my other episodes about witchy self-care. Into the wild, wild woods I go. I don't care if you come with me. Who would you take into the wild, wild woods with you? I'm taking me, I'm taking me, I'm taking me. Into the night where the crack of a tree branch says so much if you know how to listen. Into the winter where the smell of the air carries endless information. I may as well be blind, but I've got wits and I've got attitude. I have come here to find the thing that I was born to do. Into the wild, wild woods I go with a notebook in my path, for to interpret all the things I see and decide what I'm taking back. I'm taking back, I'm taking back. Here in the shadow of the clouds and the moon, I cannot say for certain what is real and what's in my mind, but I know that soon I will sort out my route. I feel no longer in despair, I'm more determined than I've ever been. No longer in despair, I'm more determined than I've ever been. Into the wild, wild woods I go. Into the wild, wild woods I go. Thank you very much, my friends. As always, I am Rory from Sassafras Tarot. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening. I can't wait to do this again. Next time we will be going over the Suit of Swords. Farewell, farewell.